All right, everyone. We are rounding it out today. Day one coming to a close, but not without Willie B dropping some nuggets of wisdom and information, insight on all things content creation, batching content, creating podcasts, how you can leverage content creation to grow your reach, your audience, your brand in unique ways. Will is my partner at Honey House, my partner in the Salt here. He was here till I don't even know what time he left. I had to leave and go do some babysitting of my children, or I guess be a dad. Either way you want to look at it.
Can't babysit your own children, right?
Yeah. Just being dad. So really excited for today, for everyone that has participated. After Will speaks, we'll be kind of wrapping up. We can hang out here as long as you'd like. We're going to be heading over to Level 1 Arcade on Main Street in downtown Mesa. On the second floor in Level 1, there will be a reserved area. They're doing happy hour drink specials. They're hooking it up with appetizers and some tokens, so you can throw down in some classic arcade games. So really excited to party, hang out with you guys retro style tonight. So make sure you make it over there, and feel free to invite friends, family, people, co-workers that couldn't make it during the day. There's a lot of capacity over there as well. And we'll let Will finish us off.
Oh, I'll get the clicker. Thank you. Thank you, Sean. I'm going to pull off my badge.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. It's been so fun working to put on this event, and appreciate everyone in the room right now for being here, those of us who have joined us on the live stream. It's been good. So yeah, let's jump into it. My name is William Bradford. I'm a father, a husband. I got 3 daughters. And first and foremost, I'm a musician. That's where I kind of come from, is audio and songwriting and recording and that kind of thing. And that's kind of what set me on my path of being a creator. Went to school for audio production at Mesa Community College in sound design. Took a job producing ads that would play in grocery stores initially. And it was there I was introduced to voiceovers and hiring voiceover talent, and found an interest in there. And so I took that up as a job, as being a voice actor, and it's been a great thing. For the past 6 years, I worked for a agency here in Mesa that's been in Mesa here for a long time, called Larry John Wright Advertising. If you've seen a Spencer's TV and Appliance or an Express Flooring, 1-800-EXPRESS, that's all Larry John Wright. They are ingrained very deeply here in the TV and radio community, and so I had the privilege of working in their content department, doing audio editing, and also working with the creative team to produce TV and radio commercials. So I wanted to kick it off. I saw this floating around somewhere: the age of the creator is dead. It's fake news. I don't know who said it, but it's not true. The age of the creator is upon us. And I chose this theme because I think the last time I made a PowerPoint, it probably looked like something like this in 6th grade. So you're going to see some really cool transitions and stuff that I've baked into it that I'm pretty proud of. There's never been a better time to be a creator, to be putting out content. And the reason is because the tools have never been more accessible than they are now. What you can do with so little is pretty impressive. It used to take rooms and suitcases of gear And now the majority of it can be done with the device that's in your pocket all day. Also, the platforms that exist to give you wheels. With all the social media platforms that are out there, you can make what you have very accessible very quickly. So we want to talk about short form content. Sean and myself, we have a podcast that we do called Build Stuff, Be Kind. And the goal of that podcast is to talk with entrepreneurs, artists, and creators who are building things, and about the soft skills that they have and also about the hard skills it takes to build a business and to be a creator. And we had a guest on there, his name's Dr. Chip Webb, and he's a dentist, and he was talking about this very thing, that no one knows what you do until you share it with others. And that stuck with me. So people are interested in what you do and the unique gifts and talents that you have to offer. And I want to share an example of my dad. This is my dad, David Bradford. He's 68 years old, and my dad has been a hard worker his whole life. And I really didn't know my dad was a painter until like the last year or so. He really started getting into it. And he set up a little studio, a little room where he has all of his canvases and his paints, and he just started painting, and he does it every day. And about a week ago, he decided to share his first painting on a Facebook group called like Acrylics for Life or something like that. I don't know. It's a very, if you want to go see some interesting comments and people, find this Facebook group because it was fantastic. But he posted this, and if you can see down at the bottom, you can see how many people have liked it, the comments, and the shares. And that was his first time doing something like that, and it ignited something deep within him that's like, oh, people maybe do care about what I'm doing and what I have to share. So being a musician, I love bands, love going to see live music, and I love when a band that I love comes to town, especially when they come to Crescent Ballroom in Phoenix. If you haven't been to that venue, it's fantastic. It's small. It's probably about the size of this room, and you can get real up and close and personal with bands and musicians that you love. So the band that tours builds a community. Before streaming, before all that, the way you would find out about a band was either from your friends or if you caught them at a show. And so there's an artist I like. His name is David Bazan. I don't know how to say his last name. I think it's something like that. But he's also known as Pedro the Lion. And he's been doing this gig for a long time. He literally goes and plays in people's living rooms. He calls them the living room shows or something like that. And you can sign up to have your house be the venue. And he comes on and puts to these shows. And then he stays and he hangs out and he just talks with everyone there. And he has built such a following and a community because he is going out and sharing his music in that way, which resonates with people. Another story I want to talk about, this is a buddy of Sean's. His name is Brian Niven. And Brian is a photographer, an artist. He lives in a tiny home in Pismo Beach, California. And he is also does handboarding, which is like body surfing, but with a little handboard. And I had no idea about it until I met Brian. And when I originally came on with Sean at Honey House, he was having conversations with Brian. I think it was like every day, it felt like. And we would just talk about his content and his vision and his goals, and he wasn't sure what he was wanting to do. And I remember one particular conversation we were having with him, and Sean had said, Brian, you just need to go out and document what you're doing every single day and just start sharing that with people. Well, what about this? No. Put your camera on your board, go out and do what you do, document it and share it. So since January of this year, Brian has been doing that very thing. This was his feed prior, and this is his feed now. Brian, since doing this, has now been engaging and having conversations with GoPro. He's been engaging and having conversations with Red Bull, and he's also picked up a sponsorship from Slide Handboards. And it's changing a lot of things for him, from his sole decision to document and share what he does. So I love Brian. He's been a great inspiration and example. So you no longer need this. If anyone skated, rollerbladed in the late 90s, early 2000s, you've seen this camera. This camera was the dream. It was, you could hold it while skating. It had a wide fisheye lens, and you could follow the skate. And it's like anyone who wanted to make skate videos owned this camera. The only problem is it was $4,000. And when you're a kid in high school, you don't have $4,000, right? So you no longer need this. What you have, the tools to create, are literally in your phone. You can do so much with it. So that kind of brings me to my next point of working with what you have. And you don't have to go out and spend a ton of money. You can just start doing things with the tools that you have. It's a little throwback picture. This is my best friend, David Westora. He's on the bucket drums. We got a recycling bin, a couple stools, some chairs. And that's me with a chair, microphone stand, and an Amigo acoustic guitar that my brother bought at Goodwill. And we were a band. And this is what we had. And so this is what we rolled with. So working with what you have. Some great examples of that to me. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Keith Lee. Show of hands, anyone familiar with Keith Lee on TikTok? So Keith Lee, I believe, was like a cage fighter or a wrestler at some point. And yeah, but he also loves food. And he's based in Las Vegas. And he started making these videos, and he literally just sets up the camera in front of him like that, and he sits in this stupid chair, Paw Patrol chair, what you see usually when he stands up and walks away. And he reviews food, and he rates it from 1 to 10. Keith Lee is now a standard, like in the Las Vegas community. If you want to put your restaurant on the map, you get Keith Lee to review it. He recently also had, with Chipotle, they had the fajita quesadilla, which he talked about on TikTok along with another creator. And this was like a menu hack that they did. And there was such a demand for it that Chipotle officially put it on their menu. They also renamed their location in Las Vegas to be Chipotle. And then Chipotlex, which is the name of the other creator. And this all started because he put up a camera in front of him and he started talking about food that he liked, and he rated it. Another great example is Emily Mariko. She's so interesting. She doesn't talk in her recipe videos. She sets up the camera in front of her and she adds all the ingredients and does all of her chopping, and then she usually takes a bite and shows at the end. She doesn't talk. And she's built a massive audience around simply sharing what she does, documenting what she does every day, and being consistent with sharing that. So you can do it. Make a plan. Talk about content pillars, whatever the things are that your business or your brand or that you personally do. You create those pillars and figure out how to create content around that. If you are a video game enthusiast, if you like to do woodworking, you create a pillar around Q&A or me in my shop or that kind of thing, and you begin to create content that's in those pillars. It's an easy way to organize it. Batch it. We've heard a little bit of talk about this today. Taking one day out of the month to film a large portion of content and then using that throughout the rest of the month. Use automations. Editing, scheduling, engaging. There are a lot of tools out there now with AI, ways to automate and create content very quickly. Instagram, TikTok, they all have these templates where you can put in pictures, you can put in video, and it'll literally do it for you. You just have to put the content in there. So that's the spiel on short form content. Now I want to shift over into podcasts, which I've been in the podcast editing and creation business for a long time. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Libsyn. Libsyn used to be the one platform you would use to push your podcast out, and that's how far I go back into it. So here's just some interesting stats that I pulled from Buzzsprout. Every month they do a recap of information that's going on there and statistics about podcasts. On average, there are 90 million weekly podcast listeners in the U.S. People ages 35 to 54 make up 51% of podcast listeners. 73% of these listeners listen on their phones. 38.7% of listeners use Apple Podcasts. It's still the dominating platform for listening to podcasts, followed by Spotify at 28%. You probably need $500. That's what you need to get a podcast going these days. You get yourself a nice microphone. USB microphone's great, plugs right into the computer. You need some kind of editing software, Adobe Audition. You can pay monthly for that subscription. It's about $20. You could use the camera on your phone. You need, maybe some audio cables. You need a light, those kind of things, a tripod, a desk stand, that kind of thing. But the platforms to push it out on, Anchor, which is now been bought by Spotify for podcasts, is free. Riverside, which is a way of setting up remote guests, is free. You can easily record your podcast using these platforms. So the cost of doing it is very low. You don't have to be Joe Rogan. By the way, I didn't take that photo. Getty Images gets the credit. Joe Rogan is, one of the bigger podcasters, did a big deal with Spotify, and his show is now exclusively on there, and he puts out a podcast very consistently. But you don't have to do that. There's a couple of different ways you can think about doing it. You could create a series, might be 8 episodes on a specific topic that you're very knowledgeable about. You probably have 10 or 15 friends that you could sit down and have a conversation with or interview and talk to them about. And then using that content, chopping it up, and using it for short form. This is a screenshot of the very first podcast we did, Build Stuff Be Kind, me and Sean. And we learned a lot. We figured out after we had recorded it that we had burned all the camera data into the video image. But we put the episode out anyway because we were learning, and that's how we rolled. And now those clips, even though there's a bunch of junk all over the screen, the clips still do pretty well because the information and the content is there. It's good. All right, this next one I want to close and talk with is called Create Forward. And I'd love to have Ward, who's there in the back, come and join me on stage here. Do you have that other mic, the wireless mic there? This is Ward Andrews, and if you're here tomorrow, he's going to be speaking. But we just want to talk about the journey kind of that we've been on. Yeah, we can sit down. Yeah, do you want to sit down? Yeah. With your podcast, Create Forward.
Yeah.
So
you want me to tell you about the intention and why it came to you?
Let's talk about the vision. Cool. Let's talk about the goals, and let's talk about the strategy that we've put together.
Cool. So the vision was that I wanted to start a podcast, never done one before, with video. I wanted to be able to do it every week, release it. I don't have much time. I'm running a software consulting firm, teach a class at ASU. I've got my electronic music project. I'm traveling 40% of the year. So I had to do it. I had the intention, but I wanted to do it with you guys, and I had to do it quick, and I had to do it efficiently, and I had to do it awesome. So the vision was, I want to have a podcast about creativity, and I want to have that podcast help people understand that they can be creative too, and that when they're creative, they're going to be able to create the extraordinary life they want and be able to do the things they want to do. And so that's what I came to you and Sean with, was to do that.
Yeah.
Right? And I had some
Yeah.
goals.
Yeah.
I said, by the end of the year, I want to have 1 million people experience my content. And in order to do that, we started backing that out. It's like, okay, well, we're going to have a podcast release every month, but we're going to need to slice up this content. We're going to need to drop 2 pieces of content every day across the social channels to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're at like 600,000 or 700,000
Yeah.
toward the 1 million.
Yep.
So we're going to make it.
Yep. We're gonna make it.
And we got to give a shout out to Taylor Swift, because I did a post about Taylor Swift. I got like half that, I think. So that's another tip.
It was
Talk
very
about
well
Taylor
timed.
Swift on your podcast.
Yeah.
The T-Swizzle economy or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the strategy, we could talk about how we do it, right?
Yeah.
How we batch it.
Yeah. Let's jump into that.
Yeah, so our whole thing is, I know from my brain, I need to get what's in my brain out there, but we got to organize it. And so we have a pre-meeting before we shoot 4 episodes, where I run down the things I want to cover, or we're listening to our audience and our community and what people are asking about, or sometimes they're poking fun at one of our posts. And so we listen to all that, and then we just bullet point out all the things we want to cover for 4 episodes. And then we just shoot back to back to back 4 episodes in a day. And almost always it's in one take.
Yeah.
For the most part,
Yeah.
unless someone's using a power drill next door.
Which usually something always happens.
DoorDash
Yeah.
comes because we need to eat in between shooting episodes 3 and 4, and we just go for it. And then there's this awesome workflow that you've set up.
Yeah. So I think when we started doing this in April, when we did the one-day set, I think it was a long day.
Yeah.
But I was just talking with our last recording session. Now that we've been doing it for a few minutes, I think we did 4 episodes, and we went from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and we had all 4 done with lunch in between that. And so we've built this rhythm of doing it now, and it's really great. So getting into the edits, one thing that we found out about is called Autopod. And there's some finicky stuff with it. There's been times when we send stuff to Ward for review, and we do our best to look at it after it's been editing. But basically what it does is it'll pull in all of your camera angles, your audio, you sync everything up, you assign those camera angles, and Autopod will go through and make those cuts automatically based on who's speaking. And it took what usually was an hour and a half of editing time down to about 3 minutes that it does that. And then we go and spend probably another 20, 30 minutes going in there and just reviewing, making sure everything happens. And Autopod costs $30 a month to use, and it's saved a lot of time. Ward reviews it. Another thing we found out about, we're using Adobe Premiere to edit, and Adobe purchased a company called Frame.io, and what it allows you to do is once you've created your edits, you upload those into Frame.io. Ward gets a link. Ward's able to go in and review the edit and leave a comment on the timeline. Oh, this needs to be removed. I didn't really like what I said here. Sean burped and we didn't edit it out, that kind of thing. And we are able to then look at those comments, pull that up in our timeline, and it'll take us to exact those edit parts on the timeline, and we can make those edits quickly. Clip curation and selection. This is where we kind of take away some of the, and there are a lot of platforms that are out there that will allow you to cut up quick clips quickly, but we want this to be a more curated thing. We're extracting really the juicy nuggets from the podcast, the sections that we really like. And so we go through and we pull out 15 clips from each episode.
Yeah, and what I was getting feedback in the early episodes, friends or others would say, Ward, you drop things in these little gold nuggets. They're like, you got to clip out the gold nuggets and get them on social.
Yeah.
And that was essentially what we did. We just kind of expanded our work together to where now we've got these gold nuggets dropping twice a day on our Instagram.
Yeah.
So if you go to @CreateForwardShow, or you watch the Create Forward podcast, you can see these little nuggets that are getting dropped all over the place.
So then what we do is we work to organize those clips, and I'll show you a slide after this, and then scheduling those clips and working to engage people through comments and DMs and sharing on that. So a little bit with the clip organization, we've become big users of Monday.com. which is a great, what's the term? Is it a CRM? Is that the? Project management. Sure. So after we've cut up those clips, they all get dropped into Monday. They get approved or they may need to be re-edited or touched up. There's some errors in it. And then we keep track of where those clips are getting posted. When they're getting posted, the file is linked into there, and then the caption we add in there. So we could pass this over to someone who's helped managing the social media account, and all those clips are there and available. So yeah, that's a little peek behind the curtain of what goes into.
I love it. It makes me feel good knowing there's an organization behind it. No, but the thing is, what do I do best? I create content, and I want to focus on speaking it and getting it out there. And then Will and the team are all about getting it done, getting it packaged, getting it shipped. And I think the synergy between that's allowing so much great content to get out there quickly with low stress on both parts. It's just been a great synergy, and go team. Thanks.
Yeah, go team. So to wrap it up, are there any questions about podcasting, short form content that I'd love to answer? If not, we'll move it along.
I'm Pillar.
Yeah.
Knowing that there are lots of podcasts that are out there now, what do you see as the next kind of trend or thing that you would say is, hey, the topic people are going to want to talk about? I know there's lots of podcasts that are out there. It seems like at different times we've gone through murder mysteries, we've gone through, general self-help, we've gone through different levels. But just be curious, what do you see?
What's the trend for the future of content? Because in the past it's been true crime, murder mystery. What's next? Yeah, you want me to take that, or you want to take it?
Sure, go ahead.
I'm not trying to take over
your
talk.
No,
it's just I thought of about 70 things.
Okay.
So one thing that's fun, and it'll come and go, is that when there's a cultural movement, or right now Taylor Swift, that because people are so interested and they know there's going to be a lot of attention and a lot of consumption of that, then they're going to bank on that. So we see that USA Today is hiring a Taylor Swift editor, just to have a full-time person covering Taylor Swift to generate even more Taylor Swift content, because you're getting so much value off of that in the moment. But that's going to be true of whatever that cultural wave of the moment is, and that'll be what that content is. So I think true crime and sort of murder mystery and that was sort of this wave that was moving through. Everybody capitalized, it'll move through. I think a longer thing, and then I'll stop, is that I love what we heard this morning. I love what I heard from Tyler. I love that I heard this idea of authenticity and being real, because I love what the potential of AI is, but AI produces a lot of content that is generic or is not fully human and doesn't tell the same story. So I actually rebuilt my deck for tomorrow morning because I had some AI generated images. I'm like, why am I not showing my own images of me riding my bike? Why am I showing like some space alien riding a bike on Mars? Like, it's not as relevant and it isn't as engaging. So I think that's another thing, making sure you're authentic and real in your content is an overall sort of a mega trend.
Then can I dovetail it to a slightly different question for you? Which would be, I would love to hear, I'm also a big fan of hyperlocal. Like, what's happening? I would say, what are some of the maybe content or creator trends that you've seen specific to Mesa? Like, what are people talking about? What are some of the trends that you would like to see here?
So I think there's these like core interests that exist, and I think that have always existed. I think it's food, things to do, and comedy. If you go, it's actually pretty interesting. If you go to Buzzsprout and you look at the stats they put out on a monthly basis, comedy continues to be the top performing category for podcasts. People like to laugh. People like to laugh, they like food, and they like to know what to do. So I've seen this big uptick on TikTok especially of accounts that are specifically geared towards, here's what you can do in Mesa, here's what you can do in Gilbert, here's what's going on in Scottsdale, here's what's going on in Phoenix. And then Wild Joy is a good big example of a podcast that's centered around all things to do here in Arizona. And so I think that is a trend. And they want to see the person. They want to see the face talking about these things because it just makes you relate to the content that much more. Like, oh, she's kind of like me. I kind of like her vibe. I might enjoy some of the places that she's enjoying. So.
Wild Joy, any other like, hey, this is a local creator that you should follow
I think it's AZ Foodie on TikTok is one of them. And then there's another, I can't remember the account name, it's on TikTok. It's like a highway sign, and there are also things to do in Arizona. It's like, maybe it might even be like AZ things to do or something like that, yeah.
I had one other hyper-local Mesa-specific trend that I'm seeing, and that is that, so Mesa's always had this room to grow, but it's starting to be a little different. We're also seeing that homes that were like 150,000 are now worth 300, 450,000 in that market segment. You're starting to see a lot more home renovation versus new build, even though there's always new build, new construction. But you're also seeing the ancillary pieces around that. So you're seeing all of these really amazing craft-related things, or sourcing of books and objects to go in the home, and how do I renovate an 80s property and keep that character and do this? How do I renovate a 50s property and keep the character and make it modern? And there's a lot of really interesting accounts and social conversation around that, specifically in Mesa, which I think is really awesome and fascinating. And you've also seen the trend where in Gilbert and in Tempe, where the downtown areas were renovated, you know, Tempe in the 80s, Gilbert 90s, 2000, and Mesa's been slowly dripping and doing that, and obviously ASU coming in is great, but now I feel like there's like this fire that's been lit, and it's happening faster, and ASU wants more, and other people want more, and buildings are going vertical, light rails in tract, and people are staying where they grew up more. You know, I moved to Tempe when I was 5. I'm not leaving Arizona, like it's my home. Right? And a lot of people were born and grew up in Arizona are staying. And so now there's this new mentality as we're getting older. How can we build and preserve and keep things amazing versus just moving or building something new? And I think that's really relevant for Mesa specifically.
Love that.
That's great, thank you.
Yeah. All right, we'll wrap it up. I'll take it, close out. Well, okay, yeah. Thank you, everyone, again, for coming out. Thank you, Ward. Again, we have the Level 1 event tonight, and then tomorrow morning we have some fantastic speakers lined up. We have Bob Worsley, who was, we got Ward Andrews kicking off the morning, I believe. And we have Bob Worsley, who was an Arizona senator here, also the founder of Sky Mall magazine, if you can remember those days, shopping on the plane. And his new project, Zenny Home, which they broke ground on a complex that they're building right here on Main Street, a 90-unit complex built from essentially tiny homes that stack on top of each other like Legos. We also have, this is one I'm really excited about. His name is Bo Euler, and he is not an Arizona native. He's coming to us from Salt Lake, but he owns a very cool company called Enlisted Design, and they have done work for the likes of Mr. Beast and several other companies, and Bo's going to come down and share some knowledge with us tomorrow. So great lineup we got tomorrow, and thank you again for all being out here today and joining us. Appreciate it.